Hi, and welcome to Old English Outfitters YouTube channel. I'm Alan. So the number is 7. And you're saying, what in the world is he talking about? What's the number 7? 7 is the current number of variations that Sig has in their P365 little subcompact, highly popular concealed carry pistol. 7. The latest variation, number 7, is this, the P365 SAS. SAS, of course, stands for Sig Anti-Snag. Not any other thing that you can make up using those 3 letters, and there's quite a bit of stuff. Trust me, we've done it. But it really stands for Sig Anti-Snag. Okay, so this is the 7th variation and the newest. And probably the most unique for a couple of different reasons. So what's the same? What's the same as the other 365 series? Well, it's the same physical size as the other 365s. Okay, same barrel length, barrel and slide length, same frame size. Comes with the same 2 10-round magazines, one with a flat base plate, one with a slightly extended base plate. It will take the 12 and 15-round optional magazines that Sig Sauer has for these. So those are all the same. Has the same reversible magazine release. Shoots very much the same in many respects, except for where it's different, and which is fairly different. What's different about it? Well, first of all, if you look at it, keeping in mind that they went with their anti-snag idea, which, by the way, they've put on other models in their series. Other Sig pistols have carried the SAS anti-snag moniker over time. Basically what they do, essentially, is they round all the edges. So up here on the front, this is all nice and rounded. So you don't have any, if you run your hand over this pistol, if you close your eyes and run your hand over this pistol, you don't find any sharp edges on it. So if you're carrying it deep, in a pocket, for example, or under a light shirt or something like that, you don't have a sharp edge that's going to catch on something and hold and either print the gun or impair your draw of the gun or something like that. So that's the first thing they do. The second thing they did on this pistol was they ported it. It actually has a port on each side. So you're going to get, as with, I'm going to point this toward the camera, this pistol, of course, empty and safe. It's going to vent up both directions like that in a V shape, which helps keep muzzle rise down. Okay, common thing you see on larger competition pistols. Well, it's out there on defensive pistols like this. It's a little less common. It has both pros and cons, just like anything else that you do with one of these things. The last thing they did to this, we'll get to in a minute, because the first thing we're going to talk about is over here on the side. In the whole anti-snag idea of this, they took the slide release right there, the slide release lever, and they really abbreviated it. It's there, but it's not there very much, and it really doesn't stick out of the slide hardly any at all. It will lock open on the empty magazine just like everything else does, okay? But when you put a fresh magazine in this, you're not going to be able to reach up here and push that down because there's not enough there to get a hold of. You're definitely going to have to come back here and grab the back of the slide and close it, which modern training technique teaches with most of this stuff anyway. But with this, you're not going to be able to do it. You can still take the pistol, lock it open manually. It's got enough of a shelf right there. It's got enough of a shelf under my thumb, if you can see it. It's got enough of a shelf that I can pull it back and push it up with my thumb and lock it in place. But it's just too small to try to get a hold of to close it. You just got to reach for the slide. The other thing they did, sticking with the anti-snag idea, was the takedown lever on this thing is still here, but it's abbreviated down to almost nothing also. Instead of having an actual lever that sticks out, they put a slot in the end piece of the lever. So it still works the same way. You still turn it, and then the top of the slide and everything comes off, but you're going to need a tool. You're going to need a screwdriver. You're going to need an appropriately sized screwdriver head to get in there and turn that thing. Interestingly enough, when I was looking through the manual that came with this pistol, there's no mention of that. It's got the pictures and the diagrams, and it talks all about turning the takedown lever down, rotating it down so you can take it off. There's no mention of the abbreviated piece they put on the SAS. I don't know if that'll come later or not, but in the current manual that came with this, it does not have it. So if you get one of these, keep in mind, ask us. If you come in, you get one, say, how do I take this apart? We'll show you. okay? Make sure you get an appropriately sized screwdriver, not something too small or too big that you're going to gouge everything up. It doesn't work too badly. It just turns. Just put a screwdriver, slotted head screwdriver in it, and it turns. That's simple. So all that, again, designed to keep this thing very slick and streamlined. There's one SAS for you, right? Slick and streamlined. Now, here's the big thing they did with this sight. If you look at this in profile, there are no sights on top of the pistol. There is no front sight at all on the pistol, and there's no provision for a front sight. The sight is completely contained in this module that's in the back. It's a combination night sight. See if I can get it where you can, maybe you can't see it. I think we got some close-up pictures outside he'll be able to show you. It's a combination night sight. It's got tritium in it, so glow in the dark. It's night sight, and it's fiber optic, so you get a pretty good glowing effect off of it in light and sunshine, things like that. But it's all in here. The entire module is in here. Everything's recessed down into the slide, which is very, very unique. Fits right in with the SAS, the anti-snag, because there's nothing that sticks up here. When you get a sight picture, what you see is, basically it's a dot within a dot. You see a larger green dot, you see a smaller one in the center. That's what you see when you sight through this. You don't have anything on the side, so it's not like a conventional night sight that we're so used to, where you got two green dots in back, one in front. It's closer to the type of night sight where you got a single night sight up front, nothing in the back, which works pretty good, draws you to the front sight. Same idea here, except nothing sticks up, and you've got basically the back of the slide right here on either side is just black, and then you get it where you can see it. And it's interesting because if you're lined up correctly on the sight, you'll see it. You'll see that circle in the dot center. If you're not, you won't see it. It'll be cockeyed or whatever. Interesting idea. There's at least one other similar type sight to this that's out there that I'm familiar with, but this particular one looks to me like a Meprolite bullseye optical sight. The Meprolite bullseye optical sight has been around not terribly long, but a little while. Looks just like this. I don't know if that's exactly what this is, but it sure looks like it is. The Meprolite bullseye has a dovetail on the back of it. So if you had a pistol like a Glock or you had a Sig with a dovetailed rear sight, you just take that sight out, take the Meprolite sight mounted on its dovetail for the appropriate pistol you've got, slide it in that dovetail, and you get this exact sort of sight picture, except it's up on top of the slide. It's not buried down in the slide like this is. This is a reasonably long piece, so if it was up on top, it might cause holster troubles. The way this is set up, no holster troubles at all. There's nothing there to obstruct or impede anything. How is it to shoot? Well, it's a little bit different. If you're used to, like most of us are, like I am, if you're used to conventional sights where you've got a front sight and a rear sight, and you're used to looking for those, the first time or two you do this, if you pick it up and you're kind of coming out at speed, you find yourself, I'm going to go over-exaggerate this a little bit, but you find yourself pointed up in the air because you're looking for those sights on top of the gun. They're not there. So you kind of have to want to point the muzzle down just a little bit, feel like you're pointing it down a little, and you'll find that rear sight in there. Does it shoot okay? Yeah, it does. If you're used to conventional sights, like most of us are, and you start using something like this, shoot it. There's a little bit of a learning curve here to kind of get the hang of this, figure out where it's at. Something else to keep in mind about this type of sight. It is a close quarters combat sight. It is not a precision sight. If you try to shoot at a target, especially a smaller target at range, you might find yourself going through a lot of ammunition and maybe being just a little bit frustrated. The best way to use this pistol, if you're going to practice with it, keep in mind it's a defensive pistol, right? It's not a target gun. It's a defensive pistol. Like a lot of defensive pistols, put yourself up a man-sized target at, say, 10 feet or so, and practice controlled strings of shots, singles, doubles, triples, whatever you want to do. Practice those on that target at the kind of realistic range you're going to use it at. 20 feet or so at the most. Is it fun to try to shoot at smaller stuff longer? Sure it is. Everything is, right? Even the really small stuff is sometimes. But practically, you're not going to do that. Practically, you're going to use it at really close quarters. Speaking of really close quarters, the porting on this. You got to keep in mind with a defensive pistol that's ported, if you find yourself in some type of scenario where you've got a hold of something that you have to shoot, or you're one-handed, you're drawing that pistol back. If you draw it back to right there, where's that port going to vent to? Right into my face. So if you're doing that, again, something you ought to practice before you find yourself in that situation. You got to turn it out. A lot of trainers teach turn it out anyway, so there's no chance of the slide catching on you or on your clothing when it cycles. You got to turn it out. If you don't, you might get injured from the blast. Another point about the porting, if you have gorilla hands like some folks do, you got to be careful where you put that support hand thumb. There's at least one reviewer out there that I found who got a little bit of a burn on his thumb because he's got really big hands, and he ended up with his support hand thumb close enough to the port that it got him a little bit. And for goodness sakes, don't cover the port with one of your fingers. You'll be making a trip to the ER. It will not be a good time. So don't do that, okay? I've got reasonably average sort of hands, I guess. I don't have any problem holding. I'm not even close to the port. It's not a big deal, okay? But keep that in mind if you're using anything defensive pistol that's ported. Practice with it a little bit. You gotta rotate it out. Do that. Do that on your close range target like we talked, so you got the hang of how this thing works. It shoots like the other 365s. I don't know that I noticed a huge difference in muzzle jump with the porting. I suppose it's there. It's got to be there the way this thing's built. I don't know that I noticed that very much, but not a big deal. It shoots mostly like the others. It's got the same trigger mechanism, so it works pretty much the same way. Taking it apart, let's do that real quick just so you can see. We got an appropriately sized screwdriver here. You got to put the screwdriver into the slot, and then you got to turn this thing. You're going to turn it so that it's going to start out. I don't know if you can see this or not. It's going to start out at a perpendicular position. Okay, you want to turn it so it's horizontal, lined up with the slide on the gun. And then once you got in that position, you should be able to just pull this back and release it. He said, we had this issue the other day when we were doing this too. Should be able to just pull it back and release it, and then it'll come right off just like the other 365s. If you can see this, it's the same mechanism. The mechanism's not changed. The only thing that's changed, instead of having a lever that you can get a hold of with your thumb, you got a slotted screw head, essentially, okay? You put it back together. Same thing you do. You put it back together, run it all the way back, and lock it open. That'll probably stay in that position. If it does, just put your screwdriver back in and return it. It'll kind of, once you start to turn it, it'll go back where it belongs on its own. Got a little spring tension there. Check it out. Back in business, no problem. There is no slot, by the way. When you go to manually lock this open, there's no visible slot on the slide that this is going to engage into. Take it, if I can get it where you can see it. Probably can't. Take it all the way back and just push it up. All the way back till it stops against the recoil spring guide. Push it up, you'll find this slot. Okay, so that's where that's at. It's the SAS. It's the Sig anti-snag variation of the P365. Decent gun. We've got them in stock. They are $579.99 plus tax. So if you're interested in one, you want to take a look at one, handle it, see what that sight mechanism looks like, come pay us a visit. We'll show this to you. We'll show you all the other variations, and you can pick the one you like. That's all we have for right now. We appreciate you watching. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, all those things. Let us know what you think. Something you want to see, let us know. We'll see what we can do. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm Alan for Old English Outfitters.